Welcome to the process. It is Thursday, June 10th. 2-game slate. We are back after taking off yesterday for just the single game where we saw the Suns just lay the smackdown onto the Nuggets. Not ideal. I am Josh Engleman. Please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell as you get in the door. We got 2 games to talk about. Brooklyn-Milwaukee game 3. Bucks trying to save their season back in Milwaukee. And then I already forgot what the other game is, which is incredible to think about. Oh, yeah, Clips-Jazz. Jesus. Clips-Jazz, game 2. Was surprised to see the Jazz pick up game 1. I actually thought the Clips were going to take some momentum out of winning that series, but they did not. Team Jazz there, along with not having Mike Conley, which was kind of crazy. So we'll see where we end up for game 2 there. Got some coffee cups in chat. It's early, guys. It's early, man. 6:32. The alarm went off this morning. Wasn't excited about it. Watched most of the first half of the Nuggets game last night. Suns looked good. Nuggets just couldn't buy a bucket. I know they were 1 for 13 in the first quarter from 3. Probably not going to get it done shooting like that. 30 viewers, 16 likes. You guys are doing a fantastic job. It's always good to see. Royce O'Neal locked today. That's a hot take out of the gate. Wouldn't have expected that one, that's for sure. Not that I don't like Royce O'Neal. I roster him a lot, but I don't know if Royce O'Neal's a lock unless his price tag is something that I'm not really aware of. It's going to be a good one. We've got normal day today. Process show, contenders, strategy show. I'm on live before lock tonight with Greg, so we're going to be around for the whole shebang. And on that note, I think it's about that time. Let's get ourselves started. I should be no surprise, have my coffee locked and loaded, ready to go. I hope that you have a coffee, a water, a tea, joints, ciggies, shots, whatever you're doing, whatever your morning tradition may be. Join me for it. Cheers, everybody. Let's have a good day. Let's get a good plan together for today's slate. Let's win some money. Cheers. That's a little hotter than I would like it to be. Burned my mouth a little bit on a Sammy last night. Also, forgot to mention it. Rise and grind, everybody. Let's do this. Let's do this. We got to kick it off with Brooklyn. And I think this is going to be relatively easy, although I do have to check the injury status. Now, we're still without Jeff Green. We know James Harden is already out. So This should be pretty simple. Although since we've seen Brooklyn smack Milwaukee in the first 2 games, maybe it's a little bit more complicated. I think that the minutes that I have in here right now seem pretty reasonable. I don't really know who I would bump up or down. Let's take a look at that rotation from the last game just to make sure that we're not missing anything. But it's hard to read into a game when you win by 40, you know? I mean, I guess the real important question is who closes for the Nets if this game is close? Obviously, Joe Harris, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving are 3 names you expect to see. I assume Blake is a 4th. And then it comes down to whether or not we expect Mike James or Bruce Brown or, I don't know, Claxton or Shamet. I think it could really go multiple directions depending on if it's more of an offensive game or a defensive game. So I actually am pretty happy with my current projections. Bruce Brown at 26 minutes. Since we didn't really see Tyler Johnson, I'm going to take that up to 27 because I had a spillover. And I think that covers me. Brooklyn, by the way, 3.5-point dogs in Milwaukee. I would not have expected the line to be as big as it is. All right, well, it's Mike James day again. Mike James, 3,800 on DraftKings. I expect him to play. I got him in for 27 minutes right now. If he's playing 27 minutes, I mean, even if he's playing less, 3,800 on a 2-gamer, that's the value play today. I'm going back to Blake on DraftKings as well, 4,800. I like Brooklyn for the value on DK. Mike James, Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown. But on FanDuel, it's sort of the opposite story. Mike James is 4,800. I'm not like he's fine, but I don't want a ton. Blake is 5,500. He's fine. I want more than Mike James, but Kyrie, 9,700 on FanDuel. Kevin Durant, 10,700. Both of those guys look a lot better on FanDuel than they do on DK. I do want to check rates quickly since we got another game with no Harden in the playoffs. I do want to make sure that I'm not under projecting any one of these guys. So Durant with the 34% usage rate so far in the playoffs with no James Harden on the floor. Kyrie Irving's at 25.5. All of the other rates seem fine. The real problem for this team comes in with the fact that they're just shooting the lights out. Although Kyrie, I guess, isn't. Durant just is. And we expect Joe Harris to. But yeah, I really like Durant on FanDuel at 10.7. I don't mind that price tag at all. And it's not that I don't like him on DraftKings at 10.6, but the value on Brooklyn looks so much better on DK than it does on FanDuel. And I know I really didn't mention Joe Harris, 5,200 on FanDuel, 5,700 on DraftKings. That's just kind of a tough sell. If Landry Shamet falls into additional minutes, I mean, he is the flat minimum on DK. So is Claxton. There's a lot to like from Brooklyn. There really is. If this game stays competitive, I assume Brooklyn is my favorite team. But we got to move it on to the Clips. Didn't pick up the win in game 1. Probably going to have to make a couple changes here to this rotation. The question is, what are those changes? We saw Zubac play 20 minutes. We saw DeMarcus Cousins play 4. I need to look at these rotations because I don't really know them. So we saw Cousins get a second quarter rotation, pick up 3 fouls in 4 minutes, but he was +6. That's really difficult to do. So kudos to you, Boog. We did see Beverly also get a rotation, played 6 minutes in the first quarter, was +6. Didn't see the floor again, which is kind of crazy. And Reggie Jackson was in and out of the lineup. He had 2 fouls there. Did he pick up 2 more? Yeah, 2 more there, 2 more there, and he was gone in 17 minutes. Poof. Well, at least we don't have to worry about the Clippers being complicated. Psych. Awful. Closing lineup. Rondo, Kennard, Paul George, Marcus Morris, Kawhi Leonard. So Luke Kennard went from out of the rotation to closing against the Jazz. So we need to factor that in. I need to gut this entire rotation. I don't trust any part of it right now. So I think we get 16 minutes out of Zubac. I think we get one additional run at center for DeMarcus Cousins. And we know there's still no Serge Ibaka. I'm going to sneeze. I think. Yep. That is the way to wake up, guys. Sneezing is the absolute best if you're tired. It just immediately invigorates you. Incredible. I felt great. All right, 28 minutes for Marcus Morris, plus another 6 takes him to 34. Then we need any other... All right, Nick Batum minutes. Batum played 21 minutes in game 1. Started, played the first quarter, played the end of the second quarter, was minus 10 in 3 minutes in the third, and then got a middle rotation. Didn't close, wasn't going well for him either. I don't think that those minutes are a representative sample. I think about 28. So that works. And then we do the normal 40 for Kawhi and 40 for Paul George. So that leaves us 78 minutes for Luke Kennard, Rondo, Reggie Jackson, and then any spillover to the Terrence Mann, Patrick Beverly type area. So I have to assume that Reggie Jackson, like, just plays more if he stays out of foul trouble. So that's step one. I think Reggie Jackson plays 28 minutes. So that's one. So now we have 50 minutes for Rondo, Kennard, and everybody else. Rondo closing is interesting, but I don't think that's going to be a long-term goal. I do think he's going to play a lot, so I am going to give him 20 minutes. I do think Kennard's minutes are more likely to get trimmed off of that rotation right there. So something like 22 minutes for Kennard, maybe. And then 8 minutes, I guess, for Terrence Mann. And then we don't see Beverly. Although I do think we see Beverly, which is kind of tricky. When did Terrence Mann get his rotation? So Mann played in the first half, didn't play in the second half. Okay. Neither did Beverly. I'm going to go to Mann instead of Beverly. Rates I'm not super worried about, but at the very least, I would like to check them again. Kawhi at 28% usage in the playoffs. Guess I'll knock that down. Paul George, 26.5% usage in the playoffs so far in 320 minutes. I don't really know what to make of that, but I'm going to keep it sort of like that. Reggie Jackson has been the guy that's had a little bit more usage. Marcus Morris hasn't. I don't, Christian Woods, I don't think it's possible for DeMarcus Cousins to be out on the floor here. I think Cousins gets played immediately off the floor. He brings nothing to the table at this point. And I don't really think it matters whether I give Terrence Mann 8 minutes or Patrick Beverly 8 minutes. I don't know where else the minutes would come from. They got too many bodies. That's really the issue here. Like, I mean, it's to have someone come in and play 6 minutes, be plus 6 like Patrick Beverly, and then still not come back out there. It's kind of wild. I just don't think they can be dusting off DeMarcus Cousins. He might get one rotation, but If you're playing DeMarcus Cousins more than one rotation in the playoffs, something went wrong in your playoffs. All right, so for the clips, since I think these rates look pretty good at this point. That's scary, though. Reggie Jackson at the top of the heap on FanDuel at 4,800, but he's 5,400 on DraftKings, so he's the sixth best option. DK would be Marcus Morris as the preference, 4,500. I'm fine with that. And I'm fine with the Reggie Jackson projection, too. You're not normally expecting Reggie Jackson to get to foul out in 17 minutes. Paul George over Kawhi Leonard on FanDuel. Paul George 9,200. Kawhi Leonard 11K. Yeah, exit screaming. That's wild stuff. On DraftKings, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard a lot tighter. I think I prefer George just because of the price, which is kind of crazy, but at the same time necessary. Kawhi Leonard has a 70.5% true shooting in the playoffs so far. That is insane. Paul George shooting 31.5% from three. So Reggie Jackson on FanDuel, Marcus Morris on DraftKings, the two main priorities. George over Leonard, which doesn't feel great. I don't really know how else to project it. And then you get into like the table scraps after that. All right. 72 viewers, 31 likes. You know how I feel when the ratio is below 50%. So if you are here and you are watching this and you haven't hit the like button yet, please do so. That would be helpful. I would love it. Those are Russ numbers. Oh, Cantor, that's good stuff. All right, on to Milwaukee. I don't know what Milwaukee's going to do other than try to save their season, I guess. Most of the minutes that I have in here feel about right. Let's take a look at those rotations in game one. Or sorry, game two. Malcolm, who for captain and MVP Clippers Jazz? Well, not anything I could look at until we're done here, but I'll make sure to check it out when we're done. Thanks for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. All right, so Teague only played in the fourth quarter when the game was over, so I can take his minutes away. Give another one to Chris Middleton. Bryn Forbes played 21. Could have easily been closing. We'll bump him up to 24. Connaughton played 14 minutes, which is kind of brutal. We know that Holiday, Giannis, Middleton, and probably Lopez were going to play their big minutes. I don't know who that fifth closer was going to be. I feel pretty comfortable with the way that I have these minutes in right now. I just don't know where I give the extra 3 minutes. Maybe Thanasis? Do they just give him like 3 additional defensive minutes? They just got beat so badly that I expect them to mix it up in some way. I just don't know what that is. And they've got all this garbage at the bottom of the bench, like Sam Merrill. And, man, who's going to get those minutes? I'm just going to give 3 to Thanasis. I think that makes a little bit of sense from a defensive standpoint. Rates, I reckon, are spot on, but we will check it nonetheless. Giannis 33.5, that works. Bumped up to 33. Everything else is fine. Drew Holiday, 21.5% usage rate so far in the playoffs, but a much, much, much higher assist rate. So I'm going to bump that up, lock him in at 22. That seems fine to me. Chris Middleton, 27% usage rate, so he has been significantly more involved. Not really being the facilitator, though. Looks like Milwaukee's going to be ultra popular for me. Yeah. Giannis, the preferred pay-up option. Really like Drew Holiday across both sites, including DraftKings, where he's 7,600. I'm I'm getting to all things Milwaukee tonight. If they get beat, I'll own it. But Milwaukee's the play today. By far. By like a lot. Brooklyn, Clippers, Milwaukee. Yeah, there it is. So on DraftKings, we've got Drew Holiday at the top. We've got Giannis second, Mike James, and then Blake Griffin and Bruce Brown. So those three guys rotating through that as value is going to be very important. On FanDuel, Giannis clearly at the top, Drew Holiday clearly at the top. Then you take a step back to Durant, Middleton, Irving. But the pay-up options on FanDuel look great today. Not a lot of value, though, and that's going to be a real problem. You're going to have to get to a lot of the PJ Tucker, Bryn Forbes, Nick Claxtons of the world to really unlock the pay-up options on FanDuel, which is kind of nuts. Let's close out Utah. What do we know about the status of Mike Conley? I assume he's just questionable and we have no idea. Utah, Mike Conley. Partial participant in practice. Justin, that's awesome. Congrats, man. Congrats. Do we think Mike Conley plays? I think that we have to assume that he does. So, if that's the case, we need to redistribute some of these minutes. And we got to take Clarkson down. That leaves me 42 minutes for Clarkson and Ingles. So that's like 21 apiece, which is not really where I want to be, but who can I take minutes from? I don't think Clarkson at 18 is all that correct. I guess I can go 34 here, 10 here, 4, 10, 4, 22, 24. Yeah, there we go. All right, so Utah, I believe we've got set in stone. But let's just see what the Jazz look like with through the playoffs so far from a rate perspective. Clarkson, 30% usage. That's wild. Donovan Mitchell, 38. I'm going to go ahead and bump him up since it's the playoffs. He kind of fits a little bit better there. And that kind of slots everybody else in where they should be. Go to 35, actually. Slight assist rate bump, too, for Mitchell. Gobert is sort of exactly where you would expect. Rebounding rate's been a little bit lower for Gobert so far in the playoffs. I wonder if that's because he gets like pulled away from the rim a little bit. I'm going to knock that back just a tad. If we look at Utah, I can't imagine these guys look all that great from a DFS perspective, and they don't. They look really bad on DraftKings, actually. Donovan Mitchell, 8,900 would be the best DK option, and this is assuming Mike Conley is in. I don't really love much here. Bojan Bogdanovic for 5,400 is probably the best option on FanDuel, but it's just a really bad matchup against the Clippers. Like, we get the highest ranked Utah Jazz guy on DraftKings is Donovan Mitchell at 14th. On FanDuel, the highest ranked Utah guy is Bojan Bogdanovic at 9th. There's just no scenario where I think Utah, like, to me, Utah is the clear worst option today, which is not fun to think about. We're at the we're just under that 50% ratio, guys. 40-something of you not helping out the cause today. It's kind of a bummer. It's time to run some crunches, however. Optimal lineups. We're starting with FanDuel. And it's crazy because I think the pay-up options look so good. And at the same time, I just don't know how we're going to get to them. So I think this is going to be a very interesting exercise for FanDuel. So here we go. 5. I don't know why I did 5. 292.10. So we have two lineups with the exact same overall projection. Kyrie, Drew Holiday, Joe Ingles, Bryn Forbes, Chris Middleton, Joe Harris, Giannis, Blake, Nick Claxton. Or We swap out Kyrie for Reggie Jackson. We swap out Joe Ingles for Paul George. We swap out Joe Harris for Bojan Bogdanovic. So that's a 3v3. I would say that I prefer the first one, the full Brooklyn Milwaukee onslaught with just Joe Ingles, but that's scary. Mitchell took 30 shots last game. How many shots do I have him expected to take today? We have Donovan Mitchell expected to take 22 shots today. Nope, that's not it. Yep, that is it. I think that's reasonable at that pace and that usage rating. Maybe 23. I don't mind either of those lineups. Power rankings are going to be wild, though. So let's see where we stand in power rankings, because I don't have a good feel for how this is going to balance itself out. It balances you out by playing a lot of Milwaukee and Brooklyn and paying up for all of the legitimate stuff. So this is going a different direction. I thought it would force in a lot more at the bottom, and it's not really doing that the way that I thought it would. So Giannis is at the top of the power rankings on FanDuel. Blake Griffin second, Chris Middleton third, Drew Holiday, Marcus Morris, Kevin Durant, Bojan Bogdanovic, Bryn Forbes, Joe Harris, Mike James, Reggie Jackson, Kyrie Irving, Paul George, PJ Tucker. I'm fine with everything I see there. Look, that when push comes to shove, there's a 234 total on the Nets Bucks game and a 221 total in Clippers Jazz. The Clippers are the slowest team in the league. The Jazz are, middle of the pack. So that's a very slow game. Brooklyn is in the middle of the pack, but on the opposite end, Milwaukee is the fourth fastest team. So they're just two very different fantasy games. There's no surprise to me at all that that we're getting inundated with Brooklyn and Milwaukee. I don't think Blake and Claxton in an optimal is all that tricky because of Claxton's price. So we're talking about 9,400 between the two. So 9.4 times 6.5 plus 4. So you need 65 points in a GPP. You need 65 points between the two of them. In a cash game, though, I think that's a perfectly acceptable split. I don't mind anything I see there for FanDuel. And it honestly, I'm a little bit surprised at how easily you're able to get to the pay up options. I thought FanDuel was going to be a little bit trickier. DraftKings, on the other hand, this one is going to be pretty obvious. It is going to just be jamming in this Brooklyn Nets value. So optimal lineup on DraftKings, 273.6. Mike James, Drew Holiday, Bruce Brown, Blake Griffin, Brook Lopez, Luke Kennard, Kevin Durant, and Giannis. So double pay-ups to Durant and Giannis, paying down with the rest of that game plus $3,300 Luke Kennard. Luke Kennard's just going to be ultra popular at $3,300. You can drop down 0.5 of a point and simply switch Brook Lopez for Marcus Morris. So that's where we stand right now for optimals on DK. And I like the visual of both of those. Power rankings, though, I think a lot of crap is going to float to the top. So we shall see. Bucks can't play fast if they are getting blowed out and the game is over by the end of the third. Well, they're the favorites, so I'm not really going to be going with the assumption that they get blown out. And I can't do anything with Conley news. This is not what I wanted to see, but apparently it's Mike James season. Mike James at the top of the power rankings on DraftKings. Drew Holiday, Giannis, Blake, Marcus Morris, Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez, Bruce Brown, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Durant, Leonard, Irving, Kennard. Kennard not showing up as high as I thought he would for being in the optimal. It is Mike James season, though. It is Mike James season. I just don't see how the Bucks and Nets game isn't the clear priority. And I hope that they go less owned. That would be awesome. I wouldn't mind it at all. 7 o'clock. All right, so captain MVP. You want captain for Clippers Jazz. So let's load up DK Showdown for you. We're heading back to Malcolm's question from before. And let's take a look at what DraftKings looks like for Clips Jazz Showdown slate. Optimal lineup: Nick Claxton, captain. Mike James, Drew Holiday, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Fun lineup right there. Scary too, but I get why it's happening. Or you can drop down 0.15, move Giannis into the captain spot, move Claxton down a spot. Same lineup across the board, though. Interesting. All right, power rankings for the showdown game between Clips and... Oh, wait, I did the wrong thing. I got to give you Clips Jazz. My bad. Clips Jazz. Meanwhile, I'm talking about games that don't exist for you. There we go. Clips Jazz. Luke Kennard, captain. Marcus Morris, Rudy Gobert, Paul George, Donovan Mitchell, Kawhi Leonard. So you get the 4 main guys: Gobert, George, Mitchell, Leonard, Marcus Morris, and then you punt captain. That is the optimal for right now. Otherwise, you go to a Kawhi captain lineup. You lose out on Gobert in place of Nick Batum. Now, if we want to look at power rankings for Clips Jazz, get an idea of what the makeup is of the captain spot. No surprises that, all the best players are at the top of the heap here, but what we really care about is the captain ownership. Primary captains: Clips Jazz. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George basically tied. Donovan Mitchell third. They are the 3 overwhelming best captain options. And then you start getting into a couple coin flips on Gobert, Conley if he plays, Marcus Morris. But Leonard, George, Mitchell, all basically the same options. So thanks for the super chat again, Malcolm. Appreciate it. Let's close this out now with Yahoo Optimals. Bada bing, bada boom. We're in. Yahoo Optimal. Mike James, Kyrie Irving, Drew Holiday, Bruce Brown, Giannis, Middleton, Portis, and Marcus Morris. So once again, that Brooklyn Nets, Milwaukee Bucks onslaught with just Marcus Morris. You can do a similar situation and swap out Morris for Batum. There's some other move in there somewhere, but that's where we stand. Yahoo power rankings, and then we done. Unless anybody else has any other questions for us to check out. Another process show in the books. Tim, I don't know what any of that means. Literally no clue. Power rankings on Yahoo. Basically, these first 4 names are all the exact same. Mike James, Blake Griffin, Drew Holiday, Kyrie Irving. Chris Middleton is essentially in that pack too. Then Bruce Brown, Giannis over Durant, Portis, George, Mitchell, Lopez, Gobert, Marcus Morris. But the moral of the story: lots and lots of Milwaukee, lots and lots of Brooklyn. And, ooh, we are done. Feels good. I like it. I like it a lot. It's going to be a fun slate. I really hope that Nets Bucks can be competitive. I personally am cheering for the Clippers in that Jazz series just because I think it's more interesting moving forward. But I would be happy for the Jazz if they just whooped up on the Clippers overall. But we just need to see Milwaukee be competitive. The fact that they're 3.5 points favorite, 3.5 point favorites right now. That's interesting. Yeah, Tim, I don't at all care about any of that stuff. I don't know why anyone would. Who cares? That's the least interesting thing in the world. Ricky, you're curious what happened to Aaron Gordon in general? It's crazy what happens when you're on a team and then you get traded to a team that has like a lot of talent. You don't need to do all the things that you did before to make your stats look bigger. I think Aaron Gordon's been pretty solid for Denver. People are just expecting him to do more on offense because he used to do more for a really crappy Orlando team. And that's just like, you don't have to do that anymore. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Gordon moving forward. Boob, no, I didn't take my contacts out yet. That is coming up at noon. My eye doctor appointment, no, that's actually not true. My eye doctor appointment is later than noon. It is at 2:30. Haircut at noon. So we're knocking out a lot of things today. It's going to be a fun time. That's it, everybody. We're done. 2-game slate. Contenders videos will be out shortly. Strategy show at 10 a.m. Live before lock tonight from 6:30 to 7:30 with myself and Greg Ehrenberg. That's all we got, though. It was an excellent rise and grind. If you're here and you can, hit that like button one last time. Tons of content coming out today. It's going to be a good day. We've got a 2-gamer today. We've got a 2-gamer tomorrow. We're closing out the work week strong. It's going to be fun. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for being here. Have a good day. Good luck tonight. I'll talk to you guys again in the morning.